chug, 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 chug,
Welcome back to the Wizard Staff. My name is Guy.
And I'm Blake.
And we got episode 11 for you, Mono Blue Pet Cards.
Oh yeah. But before we start, we want to make a few quick announcements. Our last episode, we actually uploaded and was immediately struck down for copyright. And so we had to re-upload it. So this means we're big YouTubers now. Like, we finally got struck down by the infamous YouTube copywriting system. It's great.
Yeah, fuck that. To be honest, I was a little mad because I've been using the same music each time, but this was the first time that it happened to like recognize, oh, we think that this is a song that you don't own. And I was like, whatever, I guess.
It wasn't even a big issue. Anyway, more on some good news. Guy, you're on the West Coast now.
I'm on the
We're
West
on the
Coast,
same.
dude.
We're in the same time zone after 3 years.
5 years.
Wait, is it 5?
We both went to college. That's 4.
Oh yeah.
And senior year of high school.
Right.
It's
Okay.
been
I was
5
thinking
years.
of when I last. I think. Yeah. I was thinking of when I last visited you. Was 3 years.
Oh,
yeah. It's been 5
okay,
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been 5 years since we've been in the same time zone, like permanently.
Yeah, for those who don't know, because none of you would probably, except for maybe like 3 people, I have moved to the West Coast in pursuit of a job with Old Navy as an assistant designer. So I'm going to make the big bucks and blow it all on magic cards. It's a dream come
And rent.
true. I think I'd rather just live in a box and be able to spend my money on magic cards.
With all your shiny foil cards, you're gonna be like the homeless person on the street going, Skithrix. Just petting your cards.
All these ultimate box stoppers, I'm going to own every single one.
Worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, and speaking of nice things, by the time this episode is put up on YouTube, our Twitter giveaway will have ended, and one of you lucky people who retweeted or liked our video get a book of Inktober magic art drawings by Guy that he made.
These are cards fit into the description of the Inktober challenge. Blake helped me out and picked out a few of them, and we want to give it away to someone who really enjoys our show. So please go. Well, no, I guess by the time that by this time it'll already be given away. But we really appreciate everyone's support on the video, and as well as you'll giving also back the special artwork that we did for someone else.
Yeah, we're gonna contact you and ask what art you would like Guy to draw for the last picture, and then we're gonna send it to you. And thank you guys again. All right, without one last time. All right.
Something else I'd also
we're gonna
like
go.
to give a quick special shout out is the Ramble episode that we did.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
It was just extra commentary that we had from our extra deck episode, because that went on for about 2 hours. And so something else I would like to give an extra special shout out to is the Ramble episode that we did for our last episode, the deck tech of how to build a deck. We had about an hour extra worth of audio that we wanted to put out there because we thought it was relevant, but we didn't want it to go into that video because it just kind of seemed like random bullshit that wasn't relevant. And if you were listening to just how to build a deck, then it's not like, oh, this is what we need.
Yeah, it's high quality bullshit though, so I enjoyed listening to us. we were very buzzed.
All of our content is high quality bullshit.
True. All right. So the color that we're doing today, because as you've noticed, we were trying to do a whole mono cycle of pet cards that Guy and I like. So today is going to be mono blue, and Guy, take it away with the...
So we all know the drill. We're going to just go into what blue's philosophy is. And like that of each color, it is determined by its world views. To blue, the world is opportunity. Within it lie its wonders and possibility, most fantastic, the stuff of dreams. Blue is characterized by the desire to know the world's secrets and to make those possibilities real. The belief that dream can be reality, to which blue holds pretty fast, is belief in tabula rasa, the blank state. Blue believes that all things begin existence blank, without destiny or purpose. This is contrasted with green's belief that one's life is predetermined, say by natural ability. Rather, blue believes the essence of a thing to give, that is shaped by the storms and entities of its existence. Those with the knowledge and willpower are masters of this, shaping and changing things at will. To them, essence is as malleable as clay.
That was very poetic. I feel almost as inspired as I was after watching Bohemian Rhapsody. That was beautiful.
This just came straight off the MTG Wikipedia, Blake.
Okay.
A good example I'd like to give, I like to compare this into the red, where red is a lot of chaos, but blue is more knowledge. So a lot of times when you notice, blue has you sometimes draw cards, and then you discard cards because you know what your chances are and you're looking for the best opportunities. Whereas red chaos, you discard cards and then draw cards, so it's more of a random kind of encounter.
Yeah, like you'd have to draw a whole bunch of cards to start discarding.
No, I mean like there's a lot of cards that will say draw a few cards, then discard X card. So it's more like you only draw one card, but you draw 3, and then you have to discard 2.
Okay, I think of black when I think of discard, but that's fine.
Alright, whatever.
I'm being devil's advocate here.
So popular game mechanics for blue include counter, obviously, because I don't know of any actual good counters in any other color. Card draw, change of control, library destruction, often known as mill. Mimicry, imitation of other cards or aspects of those cards.
Like copy effects.
Correct. Power reduction, bouncing permanents to hand, and time manipulation.
Alright, so each of these pet cards that Guy and I are about to talk about are less than $25 because, like, we're realists here. Like, we're on a budget. Most people are on a budget. And maybe not Guy anymore now that he's making fat stacks of cash, but we're still gonna keep our restriction of $25 or less. Some good examples of, like, when you think of blue, you like first cards you think of are like Counterspell or Brainstorm, Mystical Tutor, Consecrated Sphinx, Time Warp, and Dig Through Time, all that good shit.
Yeah, those are cards that are found in most EDH decks that run blue, so we don't want to include those because they're kind of like bland and boring at this point. There were a few though that we kind of wanted to give a shout out to. First, Cyclonic Rift. Other than Sol Ring, is it the best card in EDH?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, you wrote down, like, in our notes, like, best card in EDH, and I was about to be like, no, Sol Ring, but then you said it here, and I'm like, oh, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe. Arguably.
It's just so powerful
sometimes.
for the effect that it has, which is for 1 in a blue you can bounce 1 permanent, but for 6 in a blue you can bounce every other permanent that your opponents control, so leaving your board intact while others have to suffer. And so for 7 mana, ridiculous. Then we got the Boogeyman, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Snapcaster Mage. 2 of these being much more high budget cards, but they are very powerful and very competitive.
Mind Sculptor's a bit overrated, but that's maybe for another time.
Maybe you should shut the fuck up.
Alright, then we have, for our last card, Consecrated Sphinx. And it's great. It's like, I only bought the pretty art. I'm not going to buy the ugly art.
Yeah, I bought the ugly art, and for the longest time I was like, because whenever I played it I was just like, I don't want this on the table, but I need it on the table because I'm drawing like 20 cards every turn now. It's so popular and so powerful that I would almost say that It's probably the third best card in the format.
I don't know about that, but it's a great card.
It is, truly.
Okay.
Alright, so now we're going to get into mine and Blake's top 5. So Blake, why don't you take it away?
Alright, here we go. So number 5 for me is Royal Elemental. It is a 3 blue, 6 CMC creature elemental that is a 3/2 flyer with landfall that says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain control of target creature for as long as you control Royal Elemental. So, why use your boring blue spells to steal only one thing? Why not steal all the things? I remember playing against a Tatiova Benthic Druid deck, and then they played like 5 lands and stole all my good creatures, and I was just like, what? No, I'll give those back. But I didn't have anything to like kill it with. I'm like, no, fuck. And it was very, very impressive. And then another time, I remember Dylan, who we just had on the podcast, he and I got into a little war of stealing creatures back and forth. Like, he played Royal Elemental, and so I played Dragonlord Silumgar, stealing his Royal Elemental, and then I played a land and stole something. Then he made a copy of my Royal Elemental that I stole from him, and stole it back, and then played a land, and then stole my Silumgar, and it just went back and forth. And yeah, it was just pure. It was fun.
You two seem very petty.
We are. I have so many stories.
This is the first time that I've seen this card, which is kind of nice because often having pet cards, you don't get to see some of these cards that, you know, are actually pretty good, and you're now like, oh, okay, well, I can see how this would be used in this deck. I don't think I have a need for running Royal Elemental, but it's a good card.
Yeah, it doesn't go in every deck, but like it definitely has, for example, that Tatiova Benthic Druid deck. Oh yeah, you won't, like, it's pretty good in that deck. It's worth running. And these are pet cards. They don't have to be good. Like, guys, weird life gain spells that he likes.
Okay, so my number 5 is Riddle Keeper. It's 2 and a blue. It's a creature homunculus, 1/4. And it has whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So, for its CMC, it has a pretty good toughness, so it can block a lot of small attackers. And for my competitive Jace deck, I run maybe 10 creatures total. So for me, this card is very important because it's very scary sometimes, especially when I may be an easy target and there are a lot of creatures coming at me. So it's hard to persuade people not to hit me when I ultimately know I'm going to be the winner. So I see this card as almost a pseudo-propaganda, where there is some consequence if someone were to hit me, and then it becomes a little easier for me to mill you. And if someone's swinging at me with 4 creatures, that means 8 cards go into their graveyard rather than having to pay 8 mana if you have propaganda, which may not seem like a big deal, but as time progresses, that adds up, and I think that this is a very good card to keep in my deck because I don't want to get hit.
Okay, so that being said, do you like, I mean, it could be, being a creature, it can be viewed as like an advantage or a disadvantage. An advantage being you can block some of your opponent's creatures from attacking you. A disadvantage being it's a creature, it's like the most vulnerable permanent type there is. Like, where do you kind of think about that? Where, like,
since it's such a low CMC at being at 3, I can drop it pretty early if I have it. And I would like to say that my deck is pretty competitive by like turn 7 or 8. It doesn't matter what anyone else is going to do because at that point I should be winning the game.
Okay. Alright. And another question I have for you is like, kind of what do you think of like Ever Watching Threshold? It's like a same CMC enchantment that draws you cards each time you're attacked. So, like, what do you kind of think of? Because you were comparing Riddle Keeper to Propaganda, and so this is another like enchantment in blue that's about the same cost. Like, what do you think of that? Like, would you rather have that or both? Or
Enchantments are really nice because they're probably the hardest permanent to get rid of.
Yeah, besides land.
Besides land, of course. So I guess non-land permanent. It's hard for me to say because I do like the fact that it's almost like a consequence to someone else saying, oh, I'm going to have to mill myself for 8 rather than
giving
me the advantage. I feel like people would be more inclined to just give me the 8 cards and attack me still rather than not attack me for 8 and then have to mill themselves for 8 or 16 at that point, sorry. It would be a card on my probably maybe board, but if I really thought about it, Jace the Mind Sculptor might be the first card that I would need to take out. As much as I love the card and I think I want to keep it because it's such a high value and it's tough. It really is tough. Like at the point of my deck list for blue at least, it's like doing brain surgery of like what to take out and what to keep in.
Welcome to deck building. It's great.
No.
Yes. All right. So my number 4 is Traumatize. That's right. It's a 3 blue, so 5 CMC sorcery that says target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded down into his or her graveyard. So basically mill someone for half their deck. And I don't know, like the very first deck I built was Una Mill, and so this holds a very special place in my heart. And because like when you first read it, you're like, oh, this is like the most value mill card ever. Oh my god. And it's yeah, and I don't know, mill's pretty tough, so this is nice to have. I definitely remember one game where I milled half of Dylan's Reanimate deck. And holy shit. Instant regret. He just annihilated all of us.
Were you a new player at that time? Because I feel like that's what a rookie would do, is traumatize someone who has a Reanimate deck.
Yeah, mill the Reanimate deck. Good job. Like, I wasn't really thinking that much at the time.
Clearly.
I'm like, you know, shut up. I was like, maybe I can politic my way where it's like I help him out and like give him an advantage so he doesn't hurt me. And like I obviously didn't really try hard enough. So what happened was I like milled half his deck, and then he just like it became archenemy and he murdered all of us straight up. It was brutal.
Well, I would hope then he kills you last because, you were pretty much the catalyst for letting him win.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly how it went down, but it was a good time, man. Yep, I know I lost. I do remember that part. Thank you, guy.
I've been the subject to this card a few times, and I even know that I kept it in my Jace deck when it was at its kind of minimal power level. But when people now play this against me, it's almost like, what's the point? Almost half the time you put Ulamog in the graveyard, and that just puts my whole deck back into play, so good job.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is Increasing Confusion, which is X in a blue, and it has flashback for the same cost. It's a sorcery and says, target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. If Increasing Confusion was cast from a graveyard, so for its flashback cost, that player puts twice that many cards into his or her graveyard instead. Now, this is tough because I love this card, but I do not run it.
Oh.
It was a win con for my deck when it was at its semi-competitiveness. But because it's no longer because it was never instant speed to begin with, and it's not every opponent, I don't see it as a win con. And the way that my deck is run is like every card has to be towards a win con at this point. So it is. So the only reason why it actually made it onto my list is because there was this one time I was playing, and this was when it was at semi-competitiveness. So it's in the graveyard, and I totally forgot about it. And I'm playing, and I'm obviously not doing the best, and we're playing in a 4-player game.
Obviously.
And one person has like over 100 life. He takes out the other 2 players, and I'm next. And I'm just like, shit, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I just kind of look at my board, and I was like, oh wait, I can make infinite mana with Power Artifact and Basalt Monolith. And Increasing Confusion is in the graveyard. So all I had to do was just then mill him out, and he didn't even see it coming.
Have you ever used this on yourself? I just realized you can use this on yourself.
You know, that would actually be a pretty good idea.
Except for Ulamog.
Well, no, because like, what if there's cards in your graveyard that you then want to get back into your deck, so then you put Ulamog into your graveyard, and it's a way almost for you to reshuffle your deck, in your graveyard back into your deck.
Yeah, that'd be really weird, but you could do it.
Right.
Yeah. I also want to say, like, I also ran this card in my early mill deck days, and I also kind of grew to dislike it. 1, because it only hits 1 person, and 2, I would always, like, okay, Increasing Confusion, tapped out, get hit a bunch. Next turn, all right. Flashback cost on Increasing Confusion, tap out, and then get hit a bunch. And I'm like, by then I'm like at 5 life or something. And I'm like, I'm dead next turn. I basically like didn't develop my board at all over the last 2 turns. I just, God. And so what ended up happening was like, I only ever used its flashback cost. I only ever used it when like I discarded it to the graveyard. And I always thought it was being sneaky. I'm like, this is actually good for me, but I don't know.
I would consider putting this card in if it was instant.
I mean, yeah, instant makes everything better.
Yeah, but
except for ramen.
Yeah, so it's a no from me.
Yeah, we still love you though. Increasing Confusion. All right though, but seriously, we need to stop talking about mill. So I'm gonna talk about my number 3 card, which is Mindlock Orb. That's right. It's a 3 and a blue 4 CMC artifact that says players can't search libraries. That's it. There is a certain beauty about simplicity, people. It's great. Like this just like this shuts down like certain ramp cards like Cultivate and Kadama's Reach. Those are all useless now, and it just makes a much different EDH game that, I don't know, depending on my mood, I kind of like it, because it means nobody can be tutoring for nothing, nobody can tutor for threats, well, nobody can tutor for threats, but also nobody can tutor to answer threats, and it just completely reworks politicking, and I really love it. And also I think the art's pretty darn cool, so I really like it.
See, I like this too.
In theory.
In theory. But I would just be so scared of then becoming the number 1 target after this.
Yeah, that's the downside, is like you really have to wait for the perfect moment. You want to play it when there's not really any big threats by your opponents or you. Because if you're the threat and then you play this, it's like, okay, now I'm like super threat. And then if your other opponents have a threat and you play this, it sort of seems like, oh, you're helping them out. Like, now we can't get rid of this shit. Like, Blake, what the fuck are you doing? You've doomed us all. And it's, so there's definitely like timing is key. And it just makes games like way different than they would be otherwise. And that's why I like it. It's like,
Seems a little
like
risky. Seems a little risky, but
yeah, it's definitely risky. That's why I kind of like it. It's like live dangerously.
Okay. I'm gonna go on to my number 3, which is Telling Time. It's one in a U. I said one in a U. One in a blue. For an instant, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand, one on top of your library, and one on the bottom of your library. And I think this really plays into that kind of blue aspect that is knowledge, where you're kind of predicting the time manipulation, and you're able to like kind of make decisions based on what's on the board and what you're trying to do. So the best way to play this card is during the end step of your opponent before you. This will allow you to draw pretty much 2 cards and filter for what cards you need of those 3. And there are a lot of cards like this in at least my deck. But this one is most underrated between the blue cards on the list, since Dig Through Time, Impulse, Preordain, and Serum Visions, they're all on that like top 25 list. But I hardly see Telling Time as a card that's used. So I think that this card should almost be a auto blue include in most decks.
That's definitely an interesting idea, because like for me, the most direct comparison is to Brainstorm, and Brainstorm is also where you look at the top 3 cards of your library, but Brainstorm is you rearrange them however you want and then draw, I think.
That's Ponder.
Oh, that's Ponder. No, or maybe you don't draw, but you just rearrange the top 3.
No, Ponder allows you to draw. Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, then you put 2 on the top of your library in any order.
You're right.
I know I'm right.
You're right. Anyway, this is actually a card I haven't seen before that you've actually like. I think this is the first time where the roles are reversed, where you've shown me a new card. This is actually like, yeah, this is decent. It's instant speed. You look at the top 3 and kind of like set yourself up for success, and you know, it's not that bad.
Yeah. That's what I'd say.
Alright, real quickly, I'm gonna go to my number 2, which is Master Transmuter. It is 3 in a blue, so 4 CMC. It's an artifact creature, human artificer, 1/2, and it is a blue tap. Return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. You may put an artifact card from your hand into play. So, basically, you return an artifact. Master Transmuter, in the worst case scenario, you tap it and then put it back to your hand. And then you get any artifact like from your hand into play. So, Blightsteel Colossus!
Soldier boy, tell.
That's right. Our boy is back. We gotta mention him every episode.
I just want to say that I'm most upset that Blightsteel Colossus didn't get a new box topper art, because Platinum Empyrean did.
Yeah.
Blightsteel Colossus should have at least either gotten it over Platinum Empyrean, or they both should have gotten one.
Perhaps, yeah. Like, if you look at the original arts of Platinum Empyrean and Blightsteel Colossus, they look like cousins, or like brothers, or like whatever.
Well, there's a whole series of those like giant metal titan golem things.
Yeah, and I think they're really cool. And so, I mean, yeah, that would have been cool to have as a box topper, but anyways, Blightsteel Colossus, for like just cheating him out, it's great. And I've definitely done it before, and it's one of the most satisfying things in the world, because that's what actually a lot of people think about when they see this card, is like, oh, they're gonna get out Blightsteel Colossus, and then I'm like, funny, like, it's not like, I wish. And then
fuck you!
It's like, bam, sucker! I did. I totally played you guys. I did have Blightsteel Colossus, and it's the most satisfying thing in the world.
I really wish I had a reason to run this card, because I think the art's beautiful, and
it's so beautiful.
Would also really like to cheat out Blightsteel Colossus like that. But since it's a blue card, it can't go into my black Infect deck, and it would become a weird win con, I think, in my competitive blue deck, where it's just like, oh, it's there, but like the ability to actually do it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that would be like 1 in a 100 games without Birch. I don't
Maybe.
know. And maybe more than that.
And you wouldn't even
But-
win. You would just take one other person out.
Yeah, maybe. If they don't deal with it. But yeah, that'd be... Yeah. Oh well.
All right.
It's cool.
I'm gonna move
Why
on.
still Colossus?
I'm gonna move on to my number 2. Treasure Cruise. It's 7 in a blue, which sounds very high. So hold your dicks. Sorcery, and it has Delve. So Delve is a very interesting ability where you're able to exile cards from your graveyard, and that pays for 1 colorless mana. And then you can draw 3 cards with this. So pretty much this is Ancestral Recall.
Pretty much.
There hasn't been a time where I haven't used this card and I haven't exiled 7 cards I don't need in my graveyard just to pay for the 1 blue and draw 3 cards. Again, this is another card where it's not on the top 25 list, whereas Dig Through Time being another one that does have Delve. This card is insanely powerful because it is not like using a Power 9, because it is like using a Power 9 card. And I think that this has good reason to be banned in dual commander games.
Yeah, like, I really just have like one question for you is like, have you ever regrettably exiled something that off of delving it away for Treasure Cruise, and then you're like, oh fuck, I needed that. Fuck!
No, most of the time I can flashback other cards that I need. I can't really think of a time where I've said, oh shit. Because all my cards, I want to say like, in my deck, there's at least 2 of everything where, okay, maybe I exiled this, but I do know that I have another card that is very similar and I can use that instead.
Okay. It's like, so if one of my children dies, I can always just put more effort toward the other one.
Very dark comparison, but sure. Yeah, that's how I think of it too.
Okay, good. Alright, everybody, we've made it to Guy and I's number 1 blue pet cards.
Mine
Ready for
and
this? Here we
Guy's
go.
number 1.
Oh, god damn it.
I is not a pronoun in which that you could use. I is not a pronoun, sorry.
English.
I is a subject.
Yeah.
Mine is...
Guy's always been...
Always better at
Guy's
grammar? Yep. What's your number 1?
Anyway, my number 1 is Omniscience. So you were thinking Treasure Cruise had a high CMC? Like, those are rookie numbers. You gotta get those up there. Come on. This is 7 blue. So 10 CMC for an enchantment that says you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana costs. Yeah. So, like, cheating mana cost, as we all know, is like one of the best things you can do value-wise in this game. So why not make everything free? Why not just make everything free? Like, I'm a good person. So luckily this is like a 10 CMC, so like if you're able to get to it, like you've kind of earned it. You've earned all your free stuff. And once it's out, prepare for some like redonkulous shenanigans. It's very hard not to win once playing this. And I just want to say, like, real on a side note, if you play this in Zur, I'm probably gonna go after you first. Just saying. Because, like, cheating out that 10 CMC enchantment, like, you're basically cheating out a cheat spell. Like, that's double cheating. You're a double cheater. Like, I'm okay with first level cheaters. I'm not okay with 2-time level cheaters. Yeah.
So, one of the probably easiest win cons, in my opinion, is Omniscience and Enter the Infinite. And so when I saw that you had Omniscience on here, do you ever consider playing Enter the Infinite?
I'm actually really glad you asked that question. No. Even as a new player, I realized that this existed. Like, nobody plays Enter the Infinite without Omniscience. That's just the truth. And I realized it's just going to be really boring. Because it's like I play Omniscience, then I play Enter the Infinite. My deck becomes my hand, and I'm going to win the exact same way pretty much every single time if I do that. So I actually went with like a card called Myojin of the Seeing Winds, And basically it's a creature, I remove the divinity counter from it, and I would basically draw about 10 to 15 cards, because you draw cards equal to the number of permanents you have. And so it was that was my version of Enter. That was my nerfed version of Enter the Infinite, because what would happen is I would play Omniscience, play Myojin, draw about 15 cards, and be like, alright, what can I do? Like, by setting that 10 to 15 card restriction for myself, it's like, alright, can I string together enough value to win? And it was suspenseful, not only for myself, but for the other players. And it was actually really cool. But if I were just playing Enter the Infinite, it'd just be like, alright, yeah, okay, yeah. Blake just went off, and okay. It's just not what I wanted to do, and so that's why I don't play it. I actively never want to do it. Ever.
Interesting. And so this card is also part of the Myojin cycles, because I know you brought up the Myojin of Night's Reach.
Yes. Yeah. I actually really like that cycle.
I am unfamiliar with all of them, except for the black one and the blue one now.
I'm just introducing you to every card.
Alright. For my number 1.
Yeah.
Island. The blue card that allows you to do all the crazy shenanigans you want.
What?
Just kidding. It's Fascination.
You troll.
So it's X and a blue sorcery. Choose one of the two. Each player draws X cards, or each player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Using this card in my competitive deck, I'm always looking for ways to win in one swoop, instead of going from player to player, which is why Increasing Confusion was ranked lower on my list and no longer why I run it. In my deck, there are 5 ways of creating infinite mana, and this card is almost my always go-to for my win conditions. So you got Deadeye, Navigator, and Palinchron, which creates infinite mana. You got Palinchron and High Tide. You got Power Artifact and Grim Monolith, Power Artifact and Assault Monolith, which Power Artifact and Grim Monolith is actually probably a $240 combo for just 2 cards now. Which,
yeah, it's pretty pricey.
But worth it. And then you got Rings of Bright Earth and Basalt Monolith as well. So this card, Fascination, is very searchable. You got in my deck, you got Spellseeker, Mystical Tutor, and Muddle the Mixture, which can then tutor for a 2 CMC card, which is Fascination. So if I don't have infinite mana at my disposal, or any ways of getting that anytime soon, fine. I can just use this to draw all the cards, which is good for everyone, good politics. And then I can go through my deck to find other win cons or that other infinite mana ways that I want. And because Jace as my commander, I can then use his -3 ability to flashback something, so then Fascination becomes the way to win, because then I can just use it from my graveyard. The one downside to this card is because I love it so much and I normally see it as a win con, I don't often use it as that way I just described, which has cost me a game or two. Because if I'm tutoring for something, 60 to 70% of the time I'm getting this card, instead of something that I may need, like a counterspell or whatever, depending on the board.
Which is why you play Mind Lock Orb.
Shut the fuck up. I spent 20 cents on the normal version of this card, but after playing it so much and realizing, man, I love this card so much, I went ahead and bought the 50-cent foil version. I know, that's a lot of money, I know. But it was well worth it, and easily this is at least my favorite sorcery card. Like, most cards in my top 5 cards of all time are creatures, so I think that this card is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty... I like its art. I think the art's pretty cool too.
There's no other card also that does this kind of effect where it's each player, which is kind of what I've always wanted, is another card very similar to Fascination where I would then be able to use it to win in one swoop, as I'm saying, because it's each player. Mm-hmm. Most other cards are like X and a blue that would do target player.
Yeah, I think there are, off the top of my head, I don't know what their names are, but there are like 3 other blue spells that are sort of like each player draws X cards. But I've never seen a card where it has both of the modes. I've only ever seen the one where it's like each player draws X cards.
I even haven't seen another version of this card where it's even just one of the modes where it's each player. It's always just target player does this.
Okay, I can show you them later, but they definitely exist. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. So like you like use this to end the game most of the time, right?
Yes.
Like when you're doing that, is there like a certain mode that you choose, the draw or the mill? Like which one do you choose and like why?
It's probably going to be draw cards, because thinking about it, I do not want to give someone the same opportunity that I would be given if it was put all of your cards into your graveyard and they happen to have Ulamog, Kozilek, or Gaia's Blessing, which is another one that I've happened to see, which would shuffle the library back into its graveyard. So most of the time, I can't think of the example where I would say it's each player puts top X cards into his or her library, but I feel like there has to be some time where that's prominent.
Alright, that's fair. Real quick, like what do you do when like someone has those cards, like something that shuffles their graveyard back into a library? What do you do? Is that, I mean, did you just kind of answer it where you just happen to draw out instead of mill out?
Well, you don't know that until you actually do it. So I think, because it's never happened to me, but I think the appropriate answer would be, okay, let's say I did choose the mode. Everyone puts the top 100 cards of his or her library into their graveyard. And someone's like, oh, I got Ulamog, I'm gonna just reshuffle. Shut the fuck up. Jace can flashback this, so thanks for telling me, dipshit.
And that's when you draw them out.
That's when you draw them out. Because they wouldn't discard until the end of their turn. So, joke's on them.
I love it. Alright. Well, thanks everybody for listening in to our continued series on mono colored pet cards. We really appreciate it. And we'll...
Prosperity, that's the one card that you're thinking of.
Yeah, that's one of them. I'll tell you what the other ones are. There's like 2 more. We'll put them up on screen. I'll tell you, and then you can put them up on screen.
Maybe. I don't know. That seems like extra
That
work.
sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. We hope to, bring you the content that you love. Post in the comments what your favorite blue card is. Retweet, follow us, give us a like, whatever. I don't know.
Oh, I just remembered, we're also on iTunes.
Oh my god, yeah, I keep forgetting about that. We are on iTunes now. It took quite a bit.
Forgetting about our own greatness.
Oh yes. Please go check us out on iTunes because no one else will, probably.
We love you guys.
We love you. Alright, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks.
Alright, peace.
Peace.
無用です。以上です。先生。 に